Usually when we evaluate a sporting event, there's like this highly predictable rhythm to it.
Right. A recognizable flow.
Exactly. A flow that we've all basically been conditioned to accept. Two teams step onto a pitch, they test each other's defensive structures, there's a midfield battle.
Yeah, and maybe if it's an absolute blowout, you might see a 3 or 4 goal difference.
Right. It's a localized, contained narrative.
Because there are established parameters of what a dominant performance actually looks like at the professional level. We all have this mental framework for a good day at the office.
Right, exactly.
When someone scores a hat trick, they get the match ball, they get all the headlines, and typically their intensity just drops off a cliff for the last 20 minutes.
Because the job is done.
Exactly. The brain naturally downregulates. It says, we won, you can relax now.
But then you look at this one specific match from the 2019 U20 World Cup, and suddenly all those physiological and psychological parameters are just entirely shattered.
Completely thrown out the window.
We're looking at a box score that honestly looks like a data entry error.
It really does.
And by the way, welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to deconstruct the anatomy of an absolute athletic anomaly.
Which is exactly what this is.
Right. We're tracking the life, the tactical evolution, and just the mind-bending output of Norwegian footballer Erling Haaland.
Tracing his trajectory all the way up to the summer of 2026.
And to really grasp what we're dealing with today, I have to take you, the listener, back to that group stage match in Poland. Norway versus Honduras.
Norway wins 12-0.
12-0, which is a staggering, frankly, deeply uncomfortable scoreline in any professional context.
Let alone a World Cup environment, right? I mean,
Yeah.
The baseline level of talent there is supposed to be relatively competitive.
But here is the hook, the detail that actually makes you stop and just stare at the wall.
Yeah.
Out of those 12 goals, Erling Haaland personally scores 9 of them.
9 goals
Right.
by one player.
4 before halftime, 5 after. Just to put that into perspective for you, the senior record for most goals in a single World Cup match is 5.
Right. Set by Oleg Salenko for Russia.
Back in 1994. And Haaland nearly doubled a record that has stood for over 30 years.
It remains the most lopsided individual performance in World Cup history at any level. It's just a statistical outlier that defies almost all conventional footballing logic.
I mean, how does that even happen?
Well, what's truly fascinating isn't just the sheer volume of goals, right? It's the lack of mental fatigue.
What do you mean?
To score 9 goals requires a player to completely ignore that subconscious signal we talked about earlier. The one that says, hey, we're up 7-0, I can probably stop making these blistering 70-yard sprints into the box.
Wow. Yeah, he just didn't have that off switch.
Exactly.
And it gets better, or maybe terrifying, depending on how you look at it. Because after this teenager scores 9 goals in a single international 90-minute window, he goes out to the press mixed zone.
Oh, this is the best part.
He doesn't say he's thrilled. He doesn't say he's going to frame his boots or anything. He says, and I quote, "It annoys me a little bit that I didn't score with my last kick of the game."
Unbelievable.
He was annoyed.
And that psychological baseline right there is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. We aren't here to just read a list of football statistics.
No, definitely not.
We are examining the anatomy of extreme performance. This is really about understanding how a pathological desire for perfection, when you combine it with absolute top-tier physical gifts and a highly refined tactical intelligence, creates a historic outlier.
Because if you want to understand a player who is actively frustrated by missing a 10th goal, you have to look beyond the pitch. Right?
Yeah, absolutely do. You have to look at the raw materials he was built from.
Okay, well, let's unpack those raw materials. Let's look at the actual operating system he was born with. Because if you trace the physical foundation, it starts in July 2000 in Leeds.
Right. Born in England, while his father, Erling Haaland, was actually playing in the Premier League for Leeds United.
So right away, you have this total immersion in elite professional sports. It's literally the family business.
But they don't say in England.
Right. At age 3, the family moves back to their hometown of Brine in Norway. And this is where the genetic inheritance really comes into focus.
Oh, absolutely.
Because his mother, Gry-Merita Braud, wasn't just a casual athlete. She was a national heptathlon champion in Norway in the 1990s.
Which is arguably the most crucial biomechanical detail in his entire background.
Wait, really? The heptathlon is that important?
Oh, for sure. Think about it. A heptathlon requires mastery across 7 wildly different track and field disciplines.
Okay, so what does that entail?
You're talking sprints, jumps, throws, middle distance endurance. It demands a highly versatile, incredibly explosive muscle profile.
Wow.
To be a national champion in that specific event means her fast-twitch muscle development and central nervous system efficiency were just world-class.
So when you look at Erling, you're essentially looking at the offspring of a Premier League enforcer and a national heptathlete.
It's quite the genetic lottery.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. He didn't just play football as a kid. He played handball, he played golf, he did cross-country skiing, he did track and field.
The multi-sport approach.
Yeah. And there is this unbelievable, almost absurd fact on his athletic resume. He currently holds a world record in his age category for the standing long jump.
Yeah, this is wild.
When he was 5 years old, he recorded a distance of 1.63 meters at 5.
Which is purely a test of fast-twitch explosiveness. There's no running start to generate momentum, right? It's just raw power generation from a dead stop.
It's honestly like looking at the origin story of a superhuman. Or a supervillain, maybe.
Right.
But it brings up a massive question for you. With a heptathlete mom and a Premier League dad, was he basically genetically engineered in a lab for elite sports?
It's a fair question.
Like, how much of his later dominance is just pure, unadulterated DNA versus this multi-sport athletic development? If he had only ever played football from age 4, does he still become the same monster in the penalty box?
Well, the biomechanics community would argue absolutely not.
Really?
Yeah, it's the ultimate convergence of nature and nurture. Yes, the genetic blueprint is phenomenal, but the multi-sport background is what actually optimized that blueprint.
How so?
If you look at handball, for instance, which is a sport heavily embedded in Norwegian athletic culture, it's highly physical, heavily contact-oriented, and requires constant sharp changes of direction.
Okay, I can see that.
You have to maintain incredible core stability while executing explosive throwing movements in very tight spaces, usually while a defender is actively grappling with your arms and torso.
Oh, wow. Which sounds exactly like fighting off a center back in the penalty box on a corner kick.
Precisely.
You're being held, you're being pulled, but you still have to generate the torque to get your head or foot on the ball.
Exactly. And then you add in track and field, which develops pure linear speed, proper running mechanics, and jumping power. Cross-country skiing develops ultimate V-2 max and endurance. So it wasn't just that he was doing cone drills on a grass pitch. He was building a vast subconscious library of motor skills.
So later, when he needs to contort his 6'5" frame in midair to reach across behind his body,
Or accelerate instantly from a standstill to beat an offside trap.
his central nervous system doesn't even have to think about it.
Right, his body already knows how to recruit the exact muscle groups required because he trained those pathways playing handball and jumping into sandpits as a kid.
That is fascinating.
That multi-sport background built the spatial awareness and kinesthetic control that completely define his movement today.
So the raw physical potential is there, the operating system is installed, but raw power is completely useless without a testing ground, right?
Right, it has to be refined into actual footballing intelligence.
Which brings us to his introduction to the professional game, what we can call the Norwegian laboratory.
Translating all that raw athleticism into tactical execution.
Right. So he joins the Brine Academy at age 5. He moves up the ranks and eventually breaks into senior football, playing for Brine's first team in the Norwegian second tier.
And he makes 16 appearances there.
Yeah, 16 appearances. And this genuinely shocked me when I was looking at his early logs. Do you know how many goals he scored in those 16 games? 0.
A complete blank.
A complete blank. I mean, we always hear these mythological stories about prodigies like Messi or Rooney dominating from the absolute first minute they step onto a senior pitch, right?
Yeah, they look like veterans at 16.
But Haaland plays 16 senior games and doesn't find the net once. And initially, Brian was actually playing him out wide as a winger before moving him centrally.
Which is a huge detail.
Why the disconnect, though? Was he just a late bloomer, or did he fundamentally misunderstand how to apply his physical dominance?
It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was an incubation period.
Okay, an incubation period.
Yeah, playing against fully grown veteran professionals in the Norwegian second division as a teenager is just a massive physical leap. But more importantly, playing him as a winger actually forced him to learn the game from outside the center of the pitch.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you play exclusively as a central striker your whole life, your view of the game is often very narrow. It's just you, the center backs, and the goal.
Right, you got tunnel vision.
But when you are pushed out to the wing, you develop a completely different spatial mapping. You understand how the touch lines restrict play.
Oh, I see.
You learn exactly the kind of angle and trajectory a winger needs to deliver a successful cross. Which means later, When you move back to the center, you know exactly where that cross is going to land before the winger even kicks it.
Wow, because you've been in their shoes.
Exactly.
Sure.
You're seeing the defensive lines from an angle rather than just head-on. It's an invaluable tactical education.
So he's absorbing the geometry of the final third, but he still needs someone to show him how to exploit it. And that trigger happens in 2017 when he moves to Mold.
And this is where the trajectory sharply accelerates, entirely due to the manager of Mold at the time, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
A man who literally made a career out of ultimate penalty box efficiency, the ultimate poacher.
Exactly. Solskjaer became the mentor Haaland desperately needed to bridge the gap between this massive physical profile and actual tactical execution.
Right, because raw power isn't enough at that level.
At the time, Solskjaer publicly compared Haaland's style of play to Romelu Lukaku. He taught him the specific angles of finishing, how to use the defender's body to shield the goalkeeper's vision before shooting. It was just a masterclass in efficiency.
And the results of that specific mentorship are completely undeniable. If you want proof that the software update was successful, just look at the match on July 1st, 2018.
Oh, the Bran match.
Yes, Mold is playing Bran. At the time, Bran is the unbeaten league leader. They have the best defensive record in the country.
A very tough team to break down.
And in the opening 21 minutes of the match, Haaland scores 4 goals.
4 goals in 21 minutes against the most robust defensive block in Norway.
It's incredible. He essentially dismantles an entire season's worth of defensive statistics in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee.
It really is wild.
He finishes that 2018 season as Mold's top goal scorer with 16 goals in 30 matches across all competitions and wins the Elite Syrian Breakthrough of the Year award. The laboratory phase is officially over.
The blueprint was optimized. It was time to stress test it against Europe's elite.
Which ushers in the European awakening. In January 2019, he moves to Red Bull Salzburg in the Austrian Bundesliga.
A huge step up.
Now, Salzburg is famous for their high-pressing, aggressive, vertical style of play, and Haaland just fits into it flawlessly.
Like a glove.
In the 2019-2020 season, he scores 28 goals and 22 appearances. But the real moment the continent wakes up, the moment the alarms go off in Paris and Madrid and Munich, is his UEFA Champions League debut.
The ultimate proving ground for any footballer.
Salzburg is playing Genk. Haaland steps onto the pitch for the first time in Europe's most prestigious club competition, and he casually drops a hat-trick in the first half.
Unheard of.
He becomes the only player to ever score a first-half hat-trick on his competition debut.
He was completely unfazed by the occasion. And he didn't stop with Genk either. He went on to score against Liverpool at Anfield, which is notoriously one of the most intimidating environments in all of European football.
Oh, absolutely.
He scored twice against Napoli. He became the first teenager to score in 5 consecutive Champions League matches, basically brushing past records previously held by absolute legends of the game.
So naturally, Europe's biggest clubs start swarming. You have massive bids being prepared. But in December 2019, he makes an incredibly pragmatic choice.
Very calculated.
He snubs the glitz and chooses Borussia Dortmund. The fee is around $20 million, which, let's be honest, in the modern transfer market where potential alone costs $80 million, $20 million for Haaland is the heist of the century.
It was a highly calculated career move by Haaland and his camp.
Why Dortmund specifically over, say, Manchester United or Juventus?
Well, Dortmund has a globally recognized infrastructure for developing elite young talent. They play in a highly competitive, fast-paced, attacking league, and crucially, they guarantee immediate playing time.
Right. He didn't go to a mega club just to sit on the bench and learn the system.
No, he went to Dortmund to be the focal point.
And talk about an immediate return on investment. Let's look at his Dortmund debut. He doesn't even start the match.
Nope.
It's January 2020. They are away against FC Augsburg. Dortmund is losing 3-1. The manager brings Haaland on in the 56th minute.
So he steps onto a Bundesliga pitch for the very first time.
And within 23 minutes, he scores a hat-trick. Dortmund wins 5-3.
He followed that up by becoming the first Bundesliga player to score 5 goals in his opening 2 matches, playing a grand total of 56 minutes across both games.
That is just offensive.
He actually won the league's Player of the Month award for January, despite being on the pitch for less than an hour all month.
I look at this period of his career, and it really makes me think of a tech startup trying to scale globally.
How so?
Well, usually, When a startup moves from a regional market like Austria into a massive, highly competitive global market like the German Bundesliga or the Champions League, their growth curve naturally flattens out.
Right. They hit market friction.
Exactly. They face better competition, tighter regulations, better infrastructure from their rivals. In football terms, that means facing world-class center backs, incredibly sophisticated defensive systems, tighter marking.
The spaces get smaller.
Right. But Haaland's production didn't flatten out. It actually accelerated when he faced tougher defenders. How does that happen? How is he entirely bypassing the normal friction of stepping up to a higher tier?
To understand how he bypasses that friction, you have to look deeply into his specific player profile. He isn't just a physical battering ram who bullies inferior defenders and then gets found out against top-tier opposition.
Right.
If you analyze his tape from Dortmund, he is operating as a terrifyingly complete center forward. He uses his massive frame to hold up play, yes. But it's his spatial mapping and his movement in the final third that absolutely kills elite teams.
Walk me through that. What is he doing differently than a standard number 9?
Well, a standard target man will usually post up centrally and just wait for service. Haaland does the exact opposite. He will frequently drop deep into the midfield, essentially baiting a center back to follow him out of position to help Dortmund build up the play.
Oh, so he's actively creating a structural vulnerability in the defense.
Exactly. The moment he lays the ball off to a midfielder or spreads it wide, he turns and triggers a full sprint toward the goal. But it's what happens inside the penalty area that separates him.
What does he do in the box?
Elite defenders are taught to track the eyes of the ball carrier and monitor the striker's run. Haaland weaponizes this. He doesn't just run in straight, predictable lines. He utilizes extremely sharp, deceptive micro-movements.
Like little feints.
Yes. He will feint a run to the near post, wait for the defender to shift their hips, and then instantly change his vector at the last possible millisecond, accelerating into a pocket of space at the back post before the defender's brain has even registered that the space exists.
Wow. So he's essentially using his sheer physical size to create the illusion that he's a traditional, static target man.
But then moving with the agility and deception of a 5'8" winger in the final third.
Precisely. His patience and his off-the-ball timing are just unparalleled. But, and this is crucial for us to mention, this explosive playing style comes with a severe physiological cost, doesn't it?
It does. This is the era where we start to really see vulnerabilities.
Right. During his time at Dortmund, he began to suffer from recurring hamstring issues and hip flexor injuries. He was sidelined for significant stretches.
It revealed the sheer physical toll that his specific brand of fast-twitch torque places on the human body.
It's just physics, really.
Exactly. When you are 6'5" and you are repeatedly accelerating from a dead stop to 35 kilometers per hour in the span of 3 seconds, your muscles are redlining. The human body is just not structurally designed to handle that kind of sheer force indefinitely.
The machine was basically tearing itself apart because the engine was too powerful for the chassis.
That's a great way to put it.
Yet, despite those injuries, by the time he leaves Dortmund, his statistics are borderline comical. He scores 62 goals in 67 league appearances. He reaches his 100th senior career goal in just 146 appearances.
Insane efficiency.
But even then, there were skeptics. Because dominating the transition-heavy open play of the Bundesliga is one thing. Doing it in England is the ultimate stress test.
Which brings us to the Premier League conquest.
Right. Manchester City, summer of 2022. The most physically demanding, grinding league in the world, playing under Pep Guardiola.
And let's be honest, there was immense legitimate tactical tension surrounding this move.
Oh, completely. Pep Guardiola is a manager historically obsessed with control, possession, and playing with a false nine. Using a midfielder pushed up high who drops deep, touches the ball 80 times a game, and creates overloads in the middle of the pitch.
And Haaland is the absolute antithesis of that philosophy. He is entirely direct. He wants to finish the play, not orchestrate it.
Right. Yet, City triggers his release clause. And the reality of his debut 2022-2023 season immediately ends the debate. It's just a complete recalibration of what a striker can achieve in English football.
The output is almost difficult to contextualize.
Let me just lay out the architecture of this season for you. 52 goals in 53 appearances across all competitions. He wins the Continental Treble, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League in his very first year. He completely shatters the all-time Premier League single-season goal record by netting 36 goals.
Passing Alan Shearer and Andy Cole's joint record, which has stood since the mid-1990s when teams were actually playing 42-game seasons instead of 38.
He scores 3 hat-tricks in his first 8 Premier League games. To give you context on how insane that is, Michael Owen previously held the record for the fastest player to 3 hat-tricks, and it took him 48 games to do it.
And Haaland did it in 8.
In the Champions League, he scores 5 goals in a single match against RB Leipzig. Fast forward a bit, and he's eventually made captain of Manchester City in 2025, signing a massive contract extension, keeping him at the club until 2034. It is total, uninterrupted domestic dominance.
Guardiola actually adapted his incredibly rigid system to accommodate Haaland, which is something Pep rarely does for anyone.
Very true.
He realized that while he sacrificed a bit of midfield possession, the sheer gravitational pull Haaland exerted on opposition defenses created an entirely new way for City to win games.
But I want to push back on this narrative of absolute flawless perfection for a second. Because if you look closely at the data, specifically around the 2023 Champions League final against Inter Milan, a different picture actually emerges.
Okay, let's hear it.
City wins 1-0. They secure the treble. It's a historic night. But if you actually watch the tape of that match, Haaland is practically a ghost. He barely touches the ball. Inter center backs effectively nullified his physical presence.
Did do a good job on him.
And it reignites this classic football debate. Is he actually a system player? If you take him out of Pep Guardiola's beautifully orchestrated billion-dollar machine, a machine that generates dozens of high-quality chances a game, and put him on a mediocre team, does he still break these records?
This is the ultimate question.
Right. Is he the system itself, or is he just the devastatingly efficient hood ornament on top of it? And as a reminder, we're not taking sides here, just looking at the arguments presented in the material.
Well, that is the essential existential question surrounding his legacy. And to answer it accurately, we shouldn't just look at his goal tally. We should look at a fascinating observation made by Jurgen Klopp, arguably Guardiola's greatest managerial rival.
What did Klopp say?
Klopp noted that Haaland's orientation on the pitch is exceptional. He pointed out that Haaland knows always where the decisive gaps are, barely offside.
So Klopp is focusing on his spatial processing, his brain, rather than his physical output.
Exactly. What makes him the deadliest striker in football, which, by the way, FIFPro officially declared him to be in 2024, is his off-the-ball gravity.
Off-the-ball gravity.
Even in a match like the 2023 Champions League final, where he isn't getting touches, his mere presence on the pitch structurally breaks the opposition. Because he is so fast and so lethal, he permanently pins 2 center backs deep.
Right, they can't push up.
They cannot afford to step up and compress the midfield, because if they leave space behind them, Haaland will just destroy them in transition.
So by simply existing on the pitch, he is dictating the entire defensive shape of the opponent.
Yes. He creates massive pockets of space for players like Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden just by standing near the penalty spot. He doesn't need to touch the ball 50 times a game to control the match.
That makes a lot of sense.
He is the ultimate finisher who maximizes a system's output, absolutely. But the argument goes that he isn't a system player. He's an apex predator that forces the opposition's entire defensive ecosystem to adapt exclusively to him.
If you put him in a lesser team, he might get fewer touches, but his gravity remains identical.
Exactly.
Okay, so he conquers the mechanics of club football. He conquers Austria, Germany, and England. But there is always one final frontier in football, right? The ultimate historical validation for any truly great player, the thing that separates the legends from the immortals, is whether they can carry their nation on the international stage.
Which brings us to the 2026 World Cup cycle, and a completely different paradigm of pressure.
Right. Entering the 2025-2026 cycle, he is treating the record books like a checklist. He shatters the record for the fastest player to 100 Premier League goals, doing it in 111 games.
Breaking Alan Shearer's record of 124 games.
Internationally, by age 24, he becomes Norway's all-time top scorer, breaking a record that had stood since 1937. He reaches 50 international goals in just 46 matches. The previous benchmark for the 21st century was Harry Kane, who took 71 matches to do it. Haaland just obliterated it.
He became only the sixth player in the entire history of the sport to reach 50 international goals in under 50 appearances. He was basically matching Lionel Messi's output for official international club competitions before his 25th birthday.
The statistical density of this period is almost fatiguing to analyze.
He really is.
But the stats don't tell the emotional story. The emotional story is what his goals actually mean to his country. His output secures Norway's place at the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
A massive milestone.
This is their first World Cup appearance since 1998. An entire generation of Norwegians had never seen their flag at a World Cup, and Haaland literally puts the entire nation on his back. In the group stages, he is relentless.
Unstoppable.
He scores in his first 3 matches against Iraq, Senegal, and Ivory Coast. He immediately becomes his country's all-time top scorer at the World Cup. Then comes the round of 16 against Brazil, a global footballing superpower.
They're huge tests.
Haaland scores twice, is named player of the match, and leads Norway to a 2-1 victory, securing their first ever World Cup quarterfinal.
The historical weight of that cannot be overstated. He extended his record of scoring in consecutive international appearances to 14. He became the first European player since Christian Vieri in 1998 to score in his first 4 appearances at a World Cup.
Just staggering.
And the psychological pressure on him to deliver for a nation starved of international relevance for 3 decades was astronomical. Every opponent knew Norway's game plan was essentially get the ball to Erling, and yet nobody could stop it.
And that immense crushing pressure brings us to the quarterfinal match against England. Because this match doesn't play out like a triumphant superhero movie, it plays out like a profound, tragic drama.
It really does.
Norway ultimately loses 2-1 in extra time. But the most striking detail isn't the scoreline. It's the fact that Haaland didn't finish the game. He failed to score, he committed a frustrated foul, and in the final 15 minutes of grueling extra time, he was substituted off.
Yeah.
The Norway head coach, Ståle Solbakken, stated in the post-match press conference that Haaland had to be removed due to absolute physical exhaustion and a dead leg.
It is the physical manifestation of carrying an unsustainable burden.
It's like watching an elite, hyper-tuned Formula One car being forced to run flat out lap after lap with no pit stops until the engine literally catches fire on the track.
That's exactly what it was.
He pushed his physical frame so hard, trying to individually drag an entire nation past one of the deepest squads in the world, that his body physically gave out on the pitch. It is arguably the most human, vulnerable moment of his entire career.
It proves that he is ultimately bound by human physiology. We talked earlier about his biomechanics, the sheer torque his playstyle demands, and those early hamstring injuries at Dortmund.
Right, the physics of it all.
The 2026 World Cup run highlights the razor-thin margin he operates on. He has to constantly balance this immense historic weight of expectation with his own structural limitations. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he's still mortal.
So we've mapped out this almost robotic, relentless consistency on the pitch. We've seen the machine operating at maximum capacity. But what kind of human mind generates this reality? Who is Erling Haaland when the boots come off and the cameras are down?
Let's get into it.
Let's get into the myth, the man, and the Peruvian namesakes.
This is where the psychological profile of the athlete diverges wildly from your standard PR-managed football star.
To say the least, we are looking at a deeply unconventional guy. He launches a YouTube channel in 2025. By 2026, it has over 100 million views. And you'd think it would be highlights and brand deals, but what is he actually posting?
Definitely not standard PR stuff.
He's grilling massive steaks in his backyard. He's just sitting in an ice bath looking at the camera. He goes virally famous in 2023 for posting on Instagram about raw dogging a 7-hour flight, literally sitting through an entire transatlantic journey with no entertainment, no headphones, no phone, no food, no water, no sleep, just staring straight ahead at the seat in front of him.
I mean, who does that?
Right. He also practices deep lotus meditation, which actually became his signature goal celebration and was subsequently digitized into the FIFA video games.
Most people look at these things as quirky Gen Z personality traits, but from a sports psychology perspective, these are highly developed essential psychological tools.
Wait, it gets even weirder, and the cultural footprint is just massive.
Oh, I know it's coming.
Back in 2016, long before he was a global superstar, he and his under-17 national teammates formed a rap group called Flow Kings. Haaland rapped under the pseudonym Ling, L-Y-N-G. They released a song called Kaigo Joe. Fast forward to 2026, right after Norway beats Brazil in the World Cup, the famous Norwegian DJ Kygo officially remixes that old 2016 rap track, and it spends 2 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Norwegian music charts.
So he's securing golden boots and a #1 hit single simultaneously.
Exactly. And his interests are all over the map. He buys a rare 1594 edition of Snorri Sturluson's Chronicles, which is a fundamental text about medieval Norse kings, at an auction for 1.3 million Norwegian kroner.
As one does.
Right. And instead of locking it in a private vault, he just donates it to a local public library so people can learn about their history. He is literally signed on to voice an animated Viking character named Haaland in a 2026 movie called Vikings.
It's amazing.
And my absolute favorite fact from all of this. In July 2026, the National Registry in Peru officially reported that over 400 Peruvians currently share the surname Haaland. And exactly 91 children were registered with the full name Erling Haaland in the weeks following the World Cup. The registry spokesman literally went on television and joked, "Haaland is Peruvian. I mean, he buys a 16th century medieval manuscript. He's voicing a cartoon Viking. It's like he is completely self-aware that he's viewed as a mythological figure and is just leaning fully into the bit."
It definitely borders on performance art at times. But if we connect this off-pitch eccentricity to his on-pitch success, a very clear, deliberate psychological picture actually emerges.
What do you mean?
To sustain the kind of manic, record-breaking, obsessive drive he exhibits on the field, you desperately need a psychological counterweight.
You need to be able to turn the machine off.
Precisely. The modern sporting calendar is relentless. The pressure is suffocating. His ability to completely disconnect, whether that is through meditation or forcing his brain into absolute boredom by staring at an airplane wall for 7 hours or playfully leaning into his Viking persona, is a vital neurological defense mechanism against burnout.
That makes total sense.
It's not just a quirk. It is the exact counterweight needed to sustain his hyper-focused intensity. Extreme boredom and complete detachment are the required reset buttons for his nervous system.
Right.
It makes an otherwise terrifying, highly weaponized competitor wonderfully human, which is exactly why his persona resonates from the libraries of Norway all the way to the birth registries in Peru.
So bringing all of this together, we started by looking at a 5-year-old kid in Norway setting a world record for the standing long jump. We watched him completely fail to score for a second-tier Norwegian team, find his tactical footing under the meticulous guidance of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and then go on an absolute tear through Austria, Germany, and England that fundamentally redefines statistical possibilities.
He became the fastest man to 100 Premier League goals. He forced the greatest manager of his generation to alter his tactical philosophy, and he physically broke himself, dragging his country to the quarterfinals of a World Cup.
Exactly. And bringing it back to you, the listener, what you can actually take away from Erling Haaland isn't a lesson in how to strike a football. Most of us aren't born with a 6'5" frame and a heptathlete's fast twitch muscle fibers.
Oh, definitely not.
But the underlying lesson here is the dichotomy of extreme obsession and absolute detachment. It's about taking whatever raw materials you have and putting yourself in environments that ruthlessly force you to refine them. It's about combining that intense, disciplined focus with the unapologetic ability to completely unplug raw-dogging the flights of your own life, seeking out boredom, protecting your peace so you can actually sustain your high performance without burning out.
And crucially, it's about maintaining that internal hunger, regardless of external validation. It's the mindset of the 19-year-old kid who scored 9 goals in a World Cup match and was genuinely, authentically annoyed that he missed the 10th. That is the true anatomy of an outlier.
Which leaves us with one final, slightly dizzying thought for you to mull over. We know Haaland signed that contract extension, keeping him at Manchester City until 2034. He will be exactly 34 years old when that contract ends. If he is already entirely rewriting the record book shattering milestones that stood for decades by the time he's 26, what does the absolute ceiling of human athletic achievement actually look like by the time he's done?
It's a scary thought.
Are we watching the real-time normalization of the impossible? Will the next generation of academy strikers look at a 50-goal season as the baseline expectation rather than a historical exception? Because right now, looking at the data, looking at the trajectory of this anomaly, well, we are staring at an entirely different kind of human framework, and it is completely resetting the boundaries of the sport.
The parameters have changed forever.
Thanks for diving in with us.